welcoming our Mayor Thompson and Councilmember Kurt, and we are going to do some follow-up questions that we've developed. So first of all, thank you. We weren't really sure if we were going to get somebody that wanted to actually go further. But we wanted to make sure that we got every angle, and we wanted to make sure if there's something else you wanted to let us know, you can kind of help us fill in the blanks as we're making decisions. So I'll start with the questions. If we want to just go right ahead.
Can we do a round of intros real quick?
We also know how much time we're allocating. Is that clear in front?
I think we talked about an hour. Right.
And we also have for the
Yes.
next steps discussion.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, how much time have you allotted to be here?
I have an hour booked out. And
Okay.
Don't imagine it will take that long.
I don't think.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
But let's shoot for an hour. And we wanted to ask these questions so you both have time to answer. So, we were contemplating if we should do them individually, but we thought it would be nice to bounce ideas or see how things evolve, some answers evolve. Okay. So do you want to do any introductions?
Sure.
Okay. All right, I'll start. Tamara Wood. I have been a citizen of Bothell since 2016. And this is my last year as a citizen of Bothell, and I'm moving back home to New Mexico. And I'm glad to be here.
Dennis Sells, he can pronounce, citizen of Bothell since 2019. But really enjoying living here, and it's a pleasure to serve on this group, and happy to have you here tonight. So thanks for coming.
Hello, Jenny Creswell. It's nice to meet you in person. I have been, she, her pronouns. I've been a resident of Bothell. 2020, I'm a pandemic Bothell joiner. Happy to be here after spending about 20 years in Redmond. So it's been fun to come here and get new experiences.
For importance, Bothell resident since 2015. It's right 1 year. These are pronouns. Work in the area as well. From Issaquah and on the way to Seattle, and then back for a house.
I'm Mason. I'm the mayor. I grew up a half mile outside the city limits, and that's why I couldn't say born and raised in Bothell when I was running for the first time. Like that, little half mile. Have a couple kids, raising them up the street. Glad to be here. Thank you guys for being here tonight and agreeing to do this and all that.
I'm Karsten. I've lived in Bothell, he, him pronouns. I've lived in Bothell for since 2017. So also just before the pandemic. I grew up in Everett, and I've lived in Bellingham and Wenatchee since then and before Bothell. But I really like living here. And yeah, thank you for offering time to listen and to ask questions and to take your role really seriously.
Thank you. Okay, to start us off, I wanted to, we put these together after looking at the survey responses. And these are just kind of more questions that we wanted together. So in your survey response, you've indicated interest in speaking with the Salary Commission. Are there any additional areas not covered in the survey that you would like to discuss? What else what else should we know before deliberations and the final decision on council compensation? Whoever wants to go first.
I'll go first.
I wrote down a lot of things. I don't know if you want to riff off of those things if I'm done, but
No,
you can, okay.
I'm
Cool.
going to go first because the reason why I'm here is because this form deleted all my responses after I spent a lot of time on them. So trying to collect my thoughts back into the, so I'm here to fill out any gaps and to maybe just make it a little bit more holistic. So that's one of the reasons why I'm here. I don't think that there are parts of the survey that were big gaps, but it might be nice to rip off from there a little bit and reiterate some of the things that I think I might have said in my survey, but maybe drive home a different way.
I wrote this down. I'm going to apologize in advance for reading it, but I didn't want to miss it, so I'm just going to do that. Like the big reason I'm willing to talk about this in a public meeting recorded in front of everybody forever is because I know that I'm not alone in what I shared already and what I plan to share tonight in Bothell or among elected officials in cities around the region. Local elected officials are dramatically underpaid in most cities, and there are a couple of unique structural reasons why. A theme you will hear from me that I know Jenny will appreciate is that we have inherited a system that is really good at perpetuating the status quo. Systems work. And one of the features of this system is that we're among the only employees of the city who don't bargain on behalf of themselves. Like we have you guys to do that. But this is the first time in 6 years that I've been asked to speak to a salary commission and give feedback. So like, thank you. Like, this is something that I didn't know that I wanted, but it turned out when I started writing things down, I did. Typically in Bothell and other cities, this has been treated a lot like a labor negotiation from the staff side with, comparable cities and things like that, but without any actual negotiation or even feedback from the people whose salary you're discussing. And it's difficult to come in here and do this because we are public figures and there are public costs to public vulnerability. Like one example I mentioned is our advocacy on behalf of ourselves is a matter of public record. And this meeting will be available for anybody to watch forever. And in order to get this job, we have to compete for it in a very divided, rancorous political environment where any advocacy for ourselves is virtually guaranteed to be used against us in the future and characterized as us only being in public service for self-serving reasons. And that's another way we exist in a system that biases toward keeping things the same. So I am relatively sure that there's going to be a cost for me in some way for what I'm going to say in this meeting. And that's why there's only two of us here. And that's why you don't see policymakers take this up in other cities. It's not because they don't care. It's not because they don't have anything to say. It's because they've got a really high potential cost for being vulnerable in public. Another thing is, so some of the costs. When we run for public office, we become a public figure and we give up recourse that is available to everyone else when people libel or slander us in public. And unfortunately, there are people in our community who are not tethered by either decency or the truth. We regularly have terrible, untrue things said about us by our political opponents. And, I grew up here. Like my childhood friends and my parents and my wife, they all read that. And someday soon, my kids will be old enough to be online and they will read people saying terrible things about their dad. And as a council, as a group, we've had to engage with the Bothell Police Department on multiple occasions because various members were concerned with their safety. We've had some of our most painful private moments that were in no way related to our job made public and weaponized against us. We have pictures of us hang out with our friends posted online and used to peddle conspiracy theories. And we've even had members have pictures of their young children posted online and fortunately taken down by social media accounts that take down very little these days. And I don't know how to quantify any of this. That was part of the question. Because I don't know how to put a number on having your sick, hurting, or dying family members weaponized against you. I've seen happen multiple times, including to me. And the worry when a friend you've known since you were a teenager calls because they got an organizing email saying very unflattering things about you. And the worry that you and your kids might not be safe because you have a policy disagreement with someone. I don't know how to quantify any of that, but it is a cost. And it is a pretty high cost. In Bothell, we are really fortunate to have a council majority who have or is the age of having kids at home. And our council majority is still older than the median Bothell resident, but we are, as a group, a lot closer to the problems the majority of the city faces than city councils have been in the past. When I first came to city council, my kids were 2 and 4, and there was one other council member who had kids at home, and they were in high school at the time. So I've gone from the youngest person on the city council in 2020 to one of the oldest right now. And we are making real progress on the problems families face in a way that will make it a lot easier for the next generation of people in our phase of life. But people in our phase of life need to work to pay the bills. And serving on city council makes that a lot harder. There's only so much energy a person has to go around. And a few of us have, myself included, lost our day jobs since we started serving on city council. And at times it's been directly tied to the work we do as public figures. Some of us have left jobs voluntarily for work that pays much less because we needed to create enough space in our lives for public service. And some of us just aren't running again. When I lost my job, my family made so little that my children were on Medicaid while I was looking for full-time work. And I wasn't not working. I was working as the mayor of a city at a half-time job, and we needed a social safety net so that my kids could go to the hospital. And thank God for the ACA and for Medicaid. And I'm not sure how available those are going to be for people in that circumstance in the future with the current administration. And meanwhile, when that is going on, if you look at any conversation on social media about a new housing development in Bothell, you've got a pretty good likelihood of hearing somebody say, the city council's only in it for the money, while my kids are on Medicaid. And I feel like if you've been elected to serve on your city council with all of the personal costs associated with it, you shouldn't have to rely on Medicaid if your kid is sick. From a policy perspective, one of the worst parts about all of these extra unseen costs is that the more you look to make changes so we can get better results for our community, the higher that cost is. There's less personal cost if council members just show up to the meetings, vote, and go along with the status quo than there is if we have council members who want to use this position to make good changes. It's another way the system's biased toward keeping things just the way they are, which is, of course, the best way to see all of our problems continue to get worse. Sorry, I had a little soapbox moment there. So none of this is unique to Bothell. The same story is play out in our neighboring cities, and we're starting to see movement on it, but I don't think it's happening fast enough. Because changing the way we view this work and compensate for it in Bothell will do good in Bothell, and that's a good enough reason. But if you guys are bold and you move our council's compensation to what any non-municipal organization would consider fair value for an executive level half-time job where we make sacrifices far beyond our time, we can do just what Bothell has done with housing. We can lead in a way that moves the Overton window toward, hang on. Welcome back, it just blinked on me. We can lead in a way that moves the Overton window toward making the world more fair for those who serve now, and will create a system that is less biased toward the status quo and more likely to deliver better outcomes for Bothell and our neighboring communities moving forward. Because when we do something good, we can change the conversation beyond our borders. I'm almost done. And none of what I've talked about today includes campaigning time and the cost associated with getting the job. And like none of this is a silver bullet, and none of this that we do, that you guys are doing here, is going to change all the ways in which the system is biased toward the status quo, but I think it's a way to make a good change in a good direction.
Great, thank you. Do you have any fun?
You covered a lot. Yeah, in terms of like, are there things that weren't really covered in the survey? And things that you might, I don't know, I haven't watched any of your other meetings, but maybe would be helpful to frame your ideas and kind of give you some more information. Each one of the wonderful things about running for office is that we have to list all of our assets, all of our income, all of our stock, all of our property, everything online every year. So all that information is available to any member of the public, including you, to see how aligned even our current council is economically to the median or even average Bothelite too. And so the city also collects, not collects the data, but for census data about average income levels in the city. And one of the things that this maybe leads into the next question, so I'll not go too far ahead, but it's interesting that there are no members of council that rent when 40% of Bothellites rent their home. And so that's a big gap in terms of representation that I feel like compensation is one hurdle to one lever that we as a city have to adjust in order to attract candidates who are willing to take on, the personal sacrifice, but also balance their own budgetary constraints. So that's just one thing that that you might find interesting. The Public Disclosure Commission has a website that you can go to and search up anybody's name if they've even run for office, even candidates. And the city has a demographic 2-pager too. That if you haven't seen, I don't know what the website is, but it's on the city's website and it's available to give you a snapshot look of what our community looks like economically and demographic.
We have a commission and ask any follow-up questions, or should we?
No, I think.
Thank you. Sure.
Thank you. Thank you. Also, that was like, a lot of vulnerability, so we appreciate it. Yeah, it was very helpful to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, and certainly grateful for the response. Also want to recognize we covered probably some of these other areas of some of the subsequent questions. So if you don't feel that we need to dive deeper on a specific thing, just let us know, but we can go through each of the questions as well. Question 2, how do you view the opportunity cost of serving on the city council? What trade-offs or other priorities do you sacrifice by dedicating your time and energy to council duties? How might the salary commission quantify this opportunity cost?
Yeah, okay. So when I moved to Bothell, I lived in rented a unit of a 4-plex here. And I moved to Bothell because it was affordable, which is funny to say now, but I was working in Woodinville, needed something with a close commute. And so rent for me at that time was like pretty reasonable for my job. I think it was like $850 a month, which is pretty good. And that was in 2017. Since then, that unit is, I no longer live there. I purchased a condominium in 2022. And I ran for office in 2023, and those two things are connected because I don't know if Bothell has ever had a renter on city council. And in order to purchase a condominium, I had to really stretch myself financially to do so, and I was living kind of paycheck to paycheck. And so I kind of had to get the job because my council salary was, or that's not really salary, but the checks were going mainly towards my mortgage so that I could like afford to live here. And so in terms of like the opportunity cost to serving on the council, we often say, oh, it's volunteering, you're like, it's public service, you're doing a job, but it's also, there's a financial cost, like it can be quantified. And I think for each person, it's different because there's a different tolerance level for what you're willing to take a hit on your budget, monthly budget for. But also in 2022, I took I left my moderately high-paying job for one that was a lot more flexible because I needed more time to working in as a consultant. Allowed me to even live in Bothell to begin with, but the time commitment was one that also I had to weigh. And so that's the time and finance are two things that there are trade-offs, and I think each person would value them differently because they might have a different vision of what potential good could come from serving on city council or elevating their voice. And so, yeah, hopefully you've received a lot of feedback in the survey because everybody's responses might be different. And if you try to put a cost on it, I don't know if you'd get a lot of different answers. Yeah, how might you quantify the cost, the opportunity cost? This is where I was mentioning with the PDC, like, you know how much we all make, and you know how much our net worths are. Or you can at least draw some conclusions from the data. And so I think, yeah, comparing that that information to the average awful life that we're supposed to represent could be really amazing.
It is the opportunity cost of serving on the city council is really high. You'll notice as we go through this, I'm referring to this as a half-time job. Because that's what it is. And I feel like saying it's a part-time job kind of devalues like the amount of time and effort this costs. And there's also a really significant just mental, emotional cost because we all do this work because we care a lot. And we care about seeing good change made, and like we are fully invested in that. But aside from that, it's just an extra half-time job for me on top of a full-time job and a family. And after a full-time job and a family and a part-time job or a half-time job, there's really not a lot of extra time. Like I could spend that 20 hours a week furthering my career, hanging out with my kids, doing projects around the house, taking my wife to dinner, or just seeing my friends and doing fun things. And I don't do a lot of those things except hang out with my kids. That's the one thing that I have to make time for. But a couple of years ago, I realized I didn't do anything just for me, just because I liked it. So I've tried to find moments here and there to relax and do things that I enjoy, but there's not a lot of time. And my honey-do list is so long and I'm not making good progress on it, you guys. And all these things, I don't think can have a dollar amount assigned to them. Like, I don't give up money when I can't go to my kids' Little League games, but if we want this job to be accessible to people who aren't retired or independently wealthy, like we have to realize that one of the costs is to have to put significant parts of your life on hold. I can't say what it's worth to spend a year hardly seeing any of your friends, barely having a hobby, or just like laughing at the thought of fixing up your house. But that is the real cost to somebody that wants to do this, that isn't in a stage of life where they don't have to work anymore or they don't have a family anymore. I don't think an outlier in this, because similar to Councilmember Curd, I make less money now, pencil salary included, than I did before I took office. Like 6 years later, because there's only so much energy a person has. And if you want to do a good job at this and you want to pour yourself into it and like really like do your best to try to change the world a little bit, that has to come from somewhere. Like it doesn't just come from nowhere.
Thank you very much for your vulnerability.
Sure. Do your official and unofficial duties limit access to public office for individuals without flexibility in their personal lives? Please explain.
Do you want me to go first this time? I don't want to feel like I'm making you go first every
I
time.
don't mind.
Okay. You go wherever you want. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't do this if I didn't have a supportive partner that takes on far more of her fair share of the burden at home so that I can take time away from the family and serve the public. Because it doesn't matter what I do, the kids still have to go places and bills have to get paid and stuff needs to get done around the house. And when you work a half-time job on top of a full-time job, honestly, somebody else just has to pick up the slack. And I don't see how you do it without having that someone. I think partners of elected officials are the like unsung heroes of all of this. Because if it weren't for their unpaid labor, like I don't see how you can do this.
Yeah, I think, since I was living paycheck to paycheck in the condo, I've had like circumstances change and I'm married now and it's easier not living paycheck to paycheck, but I think, yeah, you're right. It is, all the home tasks that need to be done, all the, the little things that get put off and deprioritized, add up a little bit, but I'm also just thinking for people without my privilege or flexibility, like I just took a lower paying job because I could, and it was available to me. And for people who don't have my economic privilege or look like me, there are real costs. So unofficial duties, we could talk about campaigning and how hard it is to, put yourself out in a campaign and knock on doors and meet the public and open up your life as someone who doesn't have privilege or who has, there might be real and permanent risks to do so. But even official duties like meetings in the middle of the week that go on for like 3 hours and are in Renton, I have to get there. So you have to have transportation flexibility, you have to have the time to be able to like drop out of work for whatever the time is and go to meetings where it might not actually even be really necessary for the city of Bothell to be represented, but it's just a duty of the office, which is really maybe a right sizing of our duties and of what the tasks council members are expected to do. Could also be part of the discussion, but that goes beyond salary. Yeah, it takes flexibility at night to have the meetings too, or on weekends. If you really want to connect with communities that you aren't necessarily a part of, but feel a duty to elevate their voice and make sure that you're intentional about hearing them and have authentic engagement with communities that might not be well served by the status quo. That takes time to build those relationships and to make sure that you're giving as much as you're trying to get information. And so I think that's really difficult, and that it's hard to do with a full-time job to pay the bills too. So yeah, I think if it's this catch-22 because you want representatives in any legislative body to be people who are impacted most by the policy, but you also have to balance that being a representative is kind of takes you out of the community that you're a part of too, and you don't have time to like engage with your network and with your social like circles to be a part of that. And so yeah, this role is really hard. And I think I said this in my response, but people always ask me like, how do you like council? How is it going? And I'm always like, do I tell them that it's really hard and that I feel like I'm disconnected from the people and the spaces that made me want to run for office in the first place? And would that discourage them from trying to take my place and let me get back to my community? Or do I tell them, oh, it's going great, and yeah, just come on, like, you could do it too. Because
Don't tell Katie any of this.
you're a big fan. Yeah, I think there are reasons why each council around Puget Sound looks the way it does, and there are reasons why, yeah, demographically, there's we're starting to, in Bothell, it's surprising and maybe an outlier, but we're starting to look more like our community that we serve, but there's still huge gaps, and I don't know how to incentivize other than with salary and right sizing the role. So tremendous amount of flexibility is required for this job.
I want to riff off that a little bit because we are a very abnormal city council in a few ways, but just our age and demographics. And I know exactly why that is, because it is really hard to make it work. And because we have to run for this job and we are public figures and it's difficult to do things that will open yourself up to criticism because the criticism is right there. We have a tendency to put just a very happy face on all the time and everything's great. And like, I mean, honestly, it is great in a way because like we get to do really amazing work. And I am really proud of what we have been able as a council to accomplish, both here in Bothell as well as just moving the Overton window regionally. But it's very apparent why this is not normal. Like we are an outlier, and boy, I understand why, because it's hard.
All right.
This question was fun.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I guess we're switching gears a little bit from some of the things that have been more closely tied to compensation. I want to hear from you both. What does it mean to you to be an effective council member? And I think Mason gets to go first.
To meaningfully change policy in a way that improves opportunity and quality of life for Bothell residents, current and future. Until I wrote it down, because that's not how normal people talk. I think to change the big things that are causing the problems people in our community face, even if we can't solve all of the problem. I think it's to worry about other people in the community more than you worry about yourself. And hopefully you get to leave things a little bit better than you found them. And like, I mean, we toss the phrase public service around, but like, it's real service. And I think everybody on our council is very aligned that like, we want to do the right thing for somebody else. Like for our neighbors, our friends, our friends that moved away because they couldn't afford to live here, to the kids who haven't moved away yet, to somebody who wants to move back or just wants to come to Bothell and start a life here. Like those people are the people that I'm primarily concerned with, like, because those are the people that are really negatively affected by the policy decisions we've made over decades in the past. And I want to fix that as much as I can.
It's interesting. I've never asked you that question, so I'm yeah.
I'd never I don't think I've ever answered it before. Like
I saw this, I looked at the email before I got in the shower this morning. I was like, wow, this is a really good question.
But this is like all of our life. I had 6 seconds in the shower to think about something that's really important I had to do tonight. And then I spent the whole day working and ran to do that thing.
Dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think anybody can be a council member. Anybody can represent a voice, whether it's their own or one that was constructed for them. But in order to be an effective, and I believe in like good or like reasonable council member, I think that there are 3 phases that a person is like naturally rolls through. So the first phase is learning. This job is so complicated. I can't even, I like my day job has so many acronyms, but this one has even more, like how is that even possible? And learning about how the system works is necessary before you can change it or before you understand who's getting hurt or what the trade-offs are. And so learning is an essential component of this job. And you'll notice that a majority of the people who are sitting up there on council, myself included, came from commissions and boards. Because the city had already invested in us the education about certain areas of policy. And so I think that the learning phase is one that all council members go through. And it varies in terms of the time that they spend there. But it's characterized by a lot of like listening, a lot of question asking, and sometimes they're really bad questions, but they're just trying to fill in the gaps and trying to make sense of what's going on and like how they fit into the puzzle. The second phase is like supporting. And so this is where it's characterized by when people say like, I'd echo that, or like, I agree with Councilmember X, or yeah, that makes sense to me. And like, just understanding that their voice has weight is another kind of like key marker of this middle phase. You know, they've learned and they understand what the system can do and is doing right now. But now they're starting to understand how it can be changed. And so that supporting role is also really helpful, but you can't have everybody being in the supporting role because it's easy to manipulate and it's also easy to not be effective when, you know, the status quo might be hurting certain parts of the community or might be leaving some people behind. If everybody's just supporting and saying like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, whatever staff brings forward is like the right thing, and not setting policy, not trying to put some guardrails around what staff should be doing or spending time on, identifying the problems, not like really understanding what their role is. That could be problematic. So the third phase of enlightenment, no,
What is the final form?
So leading is the last phase. And so this is that would be characterized by introducing policy that hasn't been discussed before, or like doing groundwork to bring a community's interest up to the level of discussion and really like truly deliberating. It can be marked by disagreements on the council or on a board. And I think that those disagreements for an effective and good council member should not, you know, get into petty disagreement, but really constructive. And so leading, I think, is where you start to realize as a council member that like that your decisions and that your voice carries a lot more weight than you might have thought it did when you were just getting onto council, or when you were in a board and commission, you're like, oh, council, they just need to make a decision. And it turns out that those are like really hard decisions, and that, you know, maybe any decision that you make comes with some negative components too. And like, you don't actually know what the future is bringing. And so so there's a lot of like internal conflict when you're in that like leadership phase that I think it takes a long time to get there. And I think some council members, just speaking as the role, not as a certain person, don't get there. And so if you consider that like average council member in Bothell spends like 2 terms before they like term out. We haven't had anyone that's spent more than like 3 terms in like living memory. And I think that's because this leadership position really gets at you and it kind of hurts because you understand that the decisions that you are making carry generational impact. And they're not just about like setting what staff looks at or what they're spending time on, but you're making decisions about what they're not spending time on too. And so to be an effective council member, I think that you do need to lead and you do need to introduce policy and you need to like know your community well enough or know your constituency well enough to like represent their voice, but you also need to be able to like fight with yourself a little bit. And that's hard and you can't do that forever. So I think the final stage is to exit gracefully and maybe to empower someone in the future. And so like I had someone who empowered me into city work and they're no longer working at the city. But that like learning through like the learning, supporting, leading, and then like empowering. The fourth one, I guess I'll write that down. I think that's like kind of the cycle of an effective council member, and you're going to spend time, hopefully, in each one. But effective council members do spend time in each one. They don't stop just after supporting and being kind of like white bread, you know, just like I, not really thinking about how their decisions are made. So.
I am totally gonna get off of that if you're done.
I'm done, and it's also 6:42.
Okay, I will go quickly. It is like, I loved all of that. It is incredibly easy for council members to show up on Tuesday nights, to nod your head at staff recommendations and to go home. That takes, I mean, that is literally just show up on Tuesday, stay quiet, go home. But it is really hard to learn where your community is struggling, to learn what needs to be done about it, to learn how in all of our 14 different plans and processes, like that you can move the needle on that thing, develop the political will to do it in the community, develop the political will to do it among the 7 people on city council, and then follow through on all of that over the course of years. Like, but that's the job. Like, that's what I want in my elected representation. I want people who pay attention, who understand how to do the job, who work well with other people and end up being really effective, making positive change that makes our lives better. And in our system of government, that's what we expect out of people in this role. And that is the actual job. And that's hard. And that takes time. I appreciated you talking about like learning, because like Matt was here for my like first couple of years of me flailing around, not understanding how anything works, but being annoyed that like I couldn't change anything right away. And like it just takes a long time to figure out.
You didn't boil as much as you think.
Yeah. It felt like it. And it is difficult. It is a lot. Not everybody can do it. Like there are people that just don't do it well. And I want people that do it well. And I want people who feel like it's worth their time to do it well. So.
Wow, thank you. Also, I would, I really recommend you putting together a TED Talk on this council.
I was thinking like, is this a
Councilmember
book?
101?
Like.
Visiting
points.
visiting lecturer, one of my classes.
Go find a thesaurus, make it an acronym.
Okay.
Like.
Well, it's nice, it's just nice to know the nuances, and I think this is like, just the answers so far have been really like, oh, I'm so glad we're doing these follow-ups, so, thank you. So this is, another one, we wanted to ask, it's about different options we've been thinking about. So we received a diverse range of perspectives on council compensation from the survey. We are considering options such as an open-ended stipend tied to an indicator like API without a fixed cap, offering individual benefits such as childcare stipend, for example, or a bundled salary increase, and or providing a low income stipend to all council members with an opt-out option. So we welcome your thoughts on any of these options.
And just to clarify, I think on the third piece related to the low income stipend, I don't think we were targeting that as like, to be targeted to a specific income level. I think we just wanted to add that potentially as a stipend as part of the salary with then the option to opt out if you chose to. So it wouldn't necessarily be tied to income.
So like a default package that you could opt out if you didn't
An
feel like.
additional bonus.
Just make it part of the salary. Anyway, sorry.
Go for it, no,
Okay.
continue.
You're talking.
So I'm gonna circle back. This is a half-time job. Like, it is a significant commitment, and I think a half-time job should pay half-time wages. Independent of all of the other costs that I mentioned that normal half-time jobs don't have. So really, I think the question like that you guys need to answer is, what should a half-time executive level job that is public facing and makes decisions that impact all of us pay? I think it's reasonable for a half-time job. Now, also, I just want to clarify, I understand that there's like a public service component to this. Like, I don't think we should make what boards of public corporations make. Like, I'm not thinking we should make this a full-time job. But I think it would be very reasonable for a half-time job to pay half of the median household income in Bothell. That seems very reasonable and rational to me. I also think it should be simple and would prefer that you didn't means test it a lot with like the low income stipend or like the childcare stipend. The cost of doing the job when you have kids is obvious, but the cost of someone's time is the same if they don't have kids. And I think we should value the time and effort spent for everyone that does the job. And just because someone can afford to have a half-time job and get very underpaid for it, doesn't mean that we should be the kind of city that accepts underpaying people for their work. People's time is valuable. And I think we should pay them for it. I think healthcare for council members is completely reasonable. Like, I think the active, hardworking mayor of a city shouldn't need to rely on Medicaid for his kids to be able to like go to the doctor if they get sick. So like just whatever the normal non-represented benefits package is, like to me, that seems like it makes sense, like not something special or extra that like employees don't get, but like whatever that looks like. And I mean, like, so I would just say keep it simple. And if you're thinking about adding like stipends and like it shouldn't have to be like only the perfect, most deserving council member can get this. Like just pay people for their time. Work is valuable, like inherently. And I think people should be paid fairly for it. So I just say flat half-time salary, access to the normal non-represented benefits package. And if somebody uses that for childcare, great. They use that just to like take their wife away for the weekend because she does all of the work all of the time at home when you are gone. Like whatever you want to spend that on, that's fine because like, you're doing the job.
I wonder about, what's your metric of success? And
I'm gonna have more to say after this.
okay, you don't agree on everything, but your metric of success is that there will be candidates for Bothell City Council in the future that look like the community in terms of demographics, in terms of economic indicators and status. And that people don't have to weigh do the heavy, like you can't actually do this job if you don't have a salary that can support it, or you're living month to month on your mortgage, or if you rent. Like you should be able to do the job. And so I think of the analogy that I always come to with consistency is buses. So buses run on a timetable very regularly, And we have members of our community who see the buses empty at certain times of the day or at certain parts along its journey and say, that bus is empty and should be canceled. But just the fact that the bus shows up at the same time, same place, all the time, allows people the confidence to maybe take that on as part of their commute rather than, or leave their car behind. And so they're encouraged by the consistency and that they know that it's something that they can like step out of their comfort zone of their car to do something that comes regularly. Even a bus that's empty is serving a purpose because it is coming regularly and it is meeting the moment every time. So I think that you know, don't get hung up on like don't get hung up on our individual stories and don't get hung up on our, you know, whether we look like the community or not, because I think your metric of success is out in the future. What is it going to take to attract candidates to this role that are, you know, that are willing to like put themselves out there? What is that? What does it look like? So in some ways, you shouldn't be asking us, you should be asking, you know, other boards and commissions who are probably the people in that learning phase and that, you know, might be interested in taking the next step. So I like that you're thinking about a lot of different things. You know, the opt-out option seems really great, but in all reality, I don't think anybody would opt out of it because it's still not gonna make us whole financially or like socially. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the answer. That's why you're driving.
I always love the comment about the bus because like there's a fundamental misunderstanding of how buses work. Like they fill up at the beginning of a route and then they go their whole route and they drop everybody off. And by the time you get to the last couple stops, yeah, there's 3 people on the bus. But that doesn't mean it wasn't standing room only at capacity and did his job on the route. Like it's just you are looking at this place. Anyway, that's not relevant and we're running along. I think just we need to be careful about looking at a short-term result because pay is not the only structural issue that keeps people from running for office. Like there's a whole lot of other privilege and advantage that really helps people who look like me that grew up a half mile outside city limits and can tell that kind of folksy story. So like you guys aren't going to fix everything wrong with all of this here. Like, so I would just like the metric is like, is this improving access? Not like, did we fix it? Because this isn't a silver bullet, it's not going to fix everything. But I don't think something needs to fix everything in order to be a good thing that improves and gets us closer to where we want to be.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Last one.
Sure. Last question. How can the salary commission enhance equity and access to elected office in Bothell? And if you could, please limit it to kind of our jurisdiction in your response.
This is like, shut up, you guys.
Well, I'm just saying, I just want to recognize there's
Yeah.
lots of things that we could do, but we have a specific role on this commission.
Yeah, it's in the name, salary, right? So you're in charge of setting the benchmark and you know, when people look at running for office, when I looked at running for office, maybe it was more being pressured. But
It was absolutely me prior to it, Carson.
but I think you still look at your finances and you're like, am I gonna be able to buy food if I have, if I take the job? So I think, yeah. Your lever is salary, and do what you feel is necessary to enhance equity. And you know, you should have access to demographic data, the city, and if you haven't been provided that 2-pager, right, or It's on the webpage somewhere. You should take a look at that. You shouldn't, process that.
I will say just by paying a fair wage for the job. Like, I think work has value and this is much more difficult taxing work than any of us will usually let on in public because it's not great for our career path to be super vulnerable. It's hard. And this job is hard on us, but I've already talked a lot about it. I would just say also adopt the idea that it's fair to pay people for their work and their sacrifice without needing a ton of other justification. The fair day's pay for a fair day's work is a good reason on its own. And I've already said all the other stuff that I have written down. So just thank you guys for being willing to serve because you are serving and not getting paid. And I want to acknowledge that and just thank you for your willingness to be part of this work. I appreciate it.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time. out. That was really good.
Awesome.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Good.
Yes.
Perfect. It's your meeting.
Okay. Is it wrong? Okay.
Early.
Whose schedule is to go so late?
Had the kids for
All right, so, all right, it is 6:57. We need to prepare for our deliberations. Next on the agenda and make a decision.
So, what I meant is to discuss the preparation for making a decision, not do it tonight.
Okay.
Unless you want to, it's your meeting.
Do we have one more interview that we need to, because I know there was one other council member that we had offered to try to figure out whether or not they could either do virtual or potentially another time if needed. I just want to make sure we don't lose track of that.
I have asked both those questions.
Okay,
And I have received no responses.
okay.
Okay.
And I think we need to move forward.
Do our best effort, and if they're not able to.
Yeah. I think, I do just wanna like interject one thing I've been reflecting on here, do it quickly. Wait. I think that, I made this observation, last time, we had. To me anyway, like I observed like sort of two schools of thought in the responses, there seemed like there were themes, and I think. Without matching responses to the folks we heard from tonight, I think we probably didn't hear from the other perspective. Like in person in this meeting, just kind of again, matching tone and philosophy. So I guess like I would have hoped we would have had one of those people come talk to us because. Like just in general, like I think about this with like my professional work, like you want to get a representative response. And so like if, I guess I would say like it would maybe be worth continuing to like ask even one more time, like with time box, because I don't think we should extend it, but like I would like to hear from somebody with the other perspective to just understand like more where they're coming from. But I also agree we cannot like extend this forever. So I think maybe like one more chance, can you do something on the second? If not, and I guess we don't even know who that represents, but like that would be the only reason that I could see for like trying again.
Well, we do. Because when you can sort the survey by responses and you can see who responded to what, and I'm making an assumption on what you mean by other perspective, but
Yeah,
I think we all know what we're talking about, so.
Yeah.
I don't,
We're
I-
one very strong.
Right.
Perspective that was very different.
right, those individuals said they were not interested in
Okay.
an interview.
okay.
I'm certainly happy to ask. I would remind you, though, that before you implement any change, you have to have a public hearing.
Yeah.
So
is
they-
that a
They will
possible-
know about what change you're proposing. They will be told about it and they will have an opportunity to come to that public
Okay,
hearing
all right.
if they would like to.
Okay, Cool.
And your decision isn't final until after that public hearing
Okay,
happens and you vote on it. So it doesn't preclude you from changing what you originally
okay,
proposed,
cool.
if you
Yeah.
wish to do so.
Yeah, as long as we're not like unintentionally
Yeah.
excluding anybody, but it sounds like we have a mechanism to prevent that, so yeah.
Yeah.
Move forward.
So, what I kind of wanted to go over with you is what you think the next meeting should be. And I had some thoughts and wanted to share those, and then could get feedback from you if you'd like something different from staff. First thing is Ann rightly pointed out to me after I typed the agenda and sent it to you, that by our original schedule, our next meeting was actually October 2nd, not the 9th. I don't care which day you want to meet on, either one of those work for us. If you meet on the 2nd, you have 3 more meetings until the deadline. If you meet on the 9th and you continue every 2 weeks, you have 2 meetings before the deadline. So that's just the math. But we would like to know from you after tonight, like, do you want to do the 2nd or do you want to do the 9th? Because that will affect the rest of the scheduling for if we change to the 9th, then we'll change the next meeting as well, and we'll do the 9th and then 2 weeks and then the next meeting. So if you chose the 9th, you'd have to make a decision by your next meeting, and then the last meeting in 2 weeks would be the public hearing. Where and then you presumably vote that evening, or you'd be asking for an extension of the deadline. If you did that the 2nd, then you'd have 1 more meeting before you had to have the public hearing. So I don't know where you all feel like as far as how much more discussion and deliberation you want to before making a decision. And maybe what I'm about to say to you will help you do that. So I'll get through that and then answer questions if you want.
Great.
So my plan is to give you a full-blown staff presentation at the next meeting. So we are going to go over everything. We are going to go over how the city does salaries, just for you to have that information. Salary commissions sometimes follow that, sometimes don't. The last one didn't. You didn't get data that is in line with that. So that's fine. But I thought just explain to you why the city does what it does. The mayor addressed some of that tonight. The second thing is go through the data that we saw from the salary commission a year ago and the data that you asked for from this year. And then finally, just sort of a run through of what we've heard, what you've requested, and what we've brought back, and just kind of run through that whole thing from beginning to end. And so everything's on the table, and before you sort of go into this is what we want to do, we've all heard the same thing, and it's all on the table. There are some other things that I thought I would provide in that presentation based upon the conversation tonight. Councilmember Kurt said something along the lines of look into our PDC information versus the average Bothell citizen. We could do that if you'd like. It's public information. It's not a secret. So that's a possibility. Mayor Thompson mentioned half the median household income. That, by the way, is for a part-time, half-time position, $66,000 a year. But I will provide that information to you as well. And then Councilmember Kurt at the end referred to some demographic data that was on the city's website site, a 2-pager. I've seen so much demographic data for the city. I wasn't exactly sure what he referred to, but I'm sure somebody will. And so if you were, I'll for sure bring that as long as well. And anything else that you want within reason that we can get to you by whatever date you decide that you want to meet next. And then I was just going to present you with a list of questions. These are the things that you've talked about considering. These are the things that are within your purview. These are the questions you really got to answer if you want to move forward a decision. And then at that point, other than answering any of your questions, let's step back and you deliberate for as long as you felt necessary, or I'd go get more information if you wanted more information. I will remind you, if we want to extend the deadline, which I know I don't recommend, but if we wanted to do that, I really would need to know by that October 9th date in order to get, basically, we would be doing that by resolution. Technically, there's nothing that says you can't ask to extend the deadline after the deadline's passed. But I think professionally, like doing it before the deadline is probably a good idea. But that's entirely up to you. And there may be things that I'm not considering. So that was kind of my plan. And we could be prepared to do that either on the 2nd or the 9th, because the information's all there. It's just putting it together and giving it to you and then seeing where you want to go.
Question for you. With that presentation, how much time of the meeting do you expect to take? I'm just wondering, Bert, just like, how much time does that give us to talk and deliberate?
I'm really gonna try, well, it depends on how much I might plan to have a little bit of a longer meeting next time, like maybe have a 2-hour meeting. I would do my very best to have that presentation done. I'm not talking about 15, 20 minutes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm gonna run through the information so you know what it is, and we know, everybody knows what we talked about throughout the process, but there's not gonna be a lot of in-depth analysis. I think that's mostly been done. And if you want further analysis, you can ask for it.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question about the final report and how that's written. That's written by you. Like, once we have like a number and we have like a justification, I was looking at a lot of these similar, like the city of Edmonds and the Kirkland, they're very long. I mean, there's a lot of justification and information in here. So is this part of the scope of what we're doing?
There is no required that you do anything other than submit a resolution to the city clerk's office.
Okay.
I will tell you, what we did a year ago, the commission asked for some of that. There is a short 2-pager on the decisions they made and why they made those decisions. That would take an extensive amount of staff time and resources to do that. And I'm not saying we can't do it. I'm just saying doing that before the end of October is probably a difficult
Well, what I'm
task.
hearing also is this something that if we do something more extensive that staff does, or is this something that we do? Because that also changes the equation of how much time we need.
I would expect the commission to put a report like that together.
Yeah.
I would expect staff to do that.
Yeah.
But it in part depends on what decision you make too, and how much level of justification you feel like you need to put in a report. So people understand why.
My question was kind of in a similar vein, but about your report for the next meeting.
Mhm.
We have access to most of that information already. We've seen it.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, does that create a lot of work for you and your team? Because I don't know if it's necessary for us to have a separate report put together on information. I think there are a few new things, as you alluded to.
Yeah.
And there's one other thing that I wanted to ask about, which is just a brief summary of the healthcare plans that Councilmember mentioned. Excuse me, I think Mayor Thompson mentioned that. I just like a little bit of information on that, but I don't think that from my perspective, I would need a new presentation just because I feel comfortable having reviewed that information and having access to it already.
I'm good with that.
So I think maybe just the new information from my perspective, because that'll save us as a group time and as staff time too.
I'm fine with that. And what I will do is I will consolidate all the information into one meeting packet.
That would be
So it's
great.
all-
So we have access to it. So we
That's
can go
right.
back and look at it.
Yep.
But you also said you had a list of questions you wanted to ask us. So if that's maybe.
No, I just, customary staff work is to present when there's a decision being made that staff comes to the board of commission and says, these are your options.
Okay.
And that'll look, I'm basically gonna say, do you want to increase salary? Do you want to decrease salary?
Sure,
If so, how much? Do
yeah,
you want to offer benefits? Do you want to offer benefits individually? Do you want to roll it together as a package? I mean, that's basically what it's gonna look like.
okay.
And so maybe you know those questions and you don't need that either. But we can, we will do anything you, well, not anything you want, but we're here to do whatever you need in order to help make the
Yeah.
decision.
I kind of think that question grading might be helpful just to make sure we're not missing any piece of it about you all, but very much a part-time thing, so I don't know if I'm holding it all in my head, all the different considerations. But I agree that like, I don't know that we need the rest of the information.
That's
we need.
not a lot of work. We've done that for past
Yeah.
commissions, so it's, I
Yeah.
think,
I assume there's almost like a template.
I think you have more options just because you've expanded sort of the scope of what you're willing to consider, but it's not. That's not that in itself, it's not a lot of work. Okay,
The one wrinkle I have to throw in is the second is a holiday for me, so I'm fine to not participate that day to like keep the train on the tracks, like I'm not concerned about that, but I just for purposes of like making sure y'all have quorum, I won't be able to make that day. I could meet another day that week, but I don't know, we've never talked about changing from Thursday, so I don't know how.
sorry about that. You had mentioned that before. I
No,
just have
okay.
completely
No,
forgotten.
okay.
Probably why they're.
I think if could join that day, but I will be virtual most likely.
I actually haven't.
So I could attend, but I would most likely need to be virtual unless something miraculous happens.
Then it sounds like we should maybe do the 9th.
I will have to be virtual on the 9th because we're leading a class and there's a dinner and everything. So. But I will make it. I just virtual.
Okay.
So you're talking about the next meeting would be. I'm in 2026, so that's just completely not helpful. I don't know what that.
Yeah.
How that even happened.
And I apologize I was planning on being here. I didn't have the change of schedule. So I had the second on
Yeah.
my schedule. But also, if it's a holiday, we should not have a meeting. So
Awesome. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Do we necessarily need to extend the timeline if we meet on the 9th? I don't know. I kind of feel like we can make it work still.
I feel,
So-
yeah, I feel like I have a lot of the information that I already need
Yeah.
to make a
We just
decision.
need to have the.
I don't feel like I'm locked and loaded, but I feel like I have an area. And I think what I really want to make sure is that whatever we have, whatever we present at this public forum, what is this? Is this like, this is not a council meeting, this is a public?
It looks a lot like what this looks like.
Okay.
I might actually. I might actually put you in the council chambers, and the reason that I would do that. No member of the public has ever showed up to a public hearing for the salary commission, but. If that were to happen, I would think having a formal structure of having you on the dais with the public, having a podium to present to would be a good idea. We could do that in other rooms. Like for sure, if not there, we will be over there in that room because we can also allow for extra room
Oh,
for
right.
members that we couldn't meet in this room, for
if it's
example.
public, does that mean that it's open for public comment? And are there
Yes.
rules around that? And
Yes.
Okay.
So I will be providing Tamara with some scripts that day. It's not much more formal, but basically you'll open the public hearing. So you'll read a script to say the public hearing is open. People will come up, they'll have 3 minutes. They'll tell you what they think. I don't know that it's 3 minutes. I think it is.
something, yeah.
But we'll know by that date. That would be something. And then also when you decide to make a final vote, we probably should go through motion, second, that kind of stuff. And, but it's really not, there's no requirement for that. I just think for a public hearing.
It's helpful to have the,
If there is a members of the public or council members that show up, then you want to have that formal sort of.
The council members will be there.
They've never come,
Really? Okay.
not
They
my
could-
So
experience.
that was just a formalized version of what we're
Yeah,
already
it's been-
doing.
It's been the same process in
Okay.
since I've been here in 2017. We
Okay.
tell people about the potential decision. What I mean by that is, I tell the council members, the public gets more of the commission is considering an increase to city council member. I don't write it up, obviously. The city clerk's office does. But they're told of the meeting and they come. Or they haven't in the past, but they're welcome to come is what I meant to say.
Okay. And what's the date? Is that the last meeting, 10:30?
So if you met on October 9th and you decided you got to a decision on that date, you could have the public hearing on October 23rd. And if you didn't, and you decided on October 9th, you needed more time, that would be plenty of time to sort of to do that. We just make the request to the council if they're meeting on the 20th of October.
Okay, the 23rd would be the forum. What has to happen on the 30th? If this is a block, a time meeting was originally considered 10:30.
Sorry.
The date, October 30th.
So October 30th, so October 3rd, oh, yeah. Yeah, that would be another thing. You could technically. How much notice do we have to get for a public hearing?
I have no idea.
I think it's a week. So I think we could do that. I think if you decide, another decision you could make is, well, you could also say, hey, we're not done. Let's meet on the 16th. You
Yeah,
have lots of options.
yeah,
You
We're
have,
talking about the 9th and then the 30th.
yeah.
now.
So if you met on the 9th and continue the 2-week schedule, it'll be the 9th and the 23rd.
and did we formally switch from 5 to 6:30 to 6 to 7:30?
we just did.
We did it today.
Just for this one,
Because
okay,
the council members,
so it's the 9th at 5, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so we're scrapping those original 16th and 30th, and we're going on the 9th and 23rd.
right, and
Okay, for the last.
so you could make several decisions tonight. You could ask for
Yeah,
an
But
extended
there's also
deadline.
the 60.
You could ask that, you could meet on the 16th, you could add a meeting on the 30th. Yeah, you have lots of options still to get this
Okay.
done by the deadline.
Yeah, I think seems like I'm getting the sense, we all feel like we have enough information. I think we just haven't been to a meeting yet being like, okay, the objective of this meeting is to get to a recommendation. I feel like if we had 2 hours on the 9th to do that,
Yeah,
we make progress. I don't know that I'll say we'll make a decision, but I feel like.
I completely agree, and I actually feel like we're at the point where, I like to think about things as kind of like low, medium, and high. And so I'm just wondering, like, do we want to request that as options that we talk about on the 9th? And I think my sense is that there is no one on this group that would say that we want to cut current salaries. So I would say, like, for me, the low would just be the current salary.
Yeah,
The medium would be some sort of hourly rate that's higher than that. And the high would be some sort of hourly rate potentially that gets closer to the median income or, that AMI number for the area. So, I would feel comfortable asking at this point that we have 3 options to talk about on the 9th. If other folks are interested.
yeah, that's a good.
That sounds really good to me.
Yeah,
And so I guess I would say like the low water mark would just be the current, in my opinion.
Mhm.
I would support like the low option being just the status quo. And then 2 options that are one that's medium and one that's high.
yeah,
And we can have a discussion about that and see where.
yeah, we can kind of compare that to
I could do that.
the chart from the other cities.
It'll be based on the information that we've discussed.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
no.
ballpark a number for you, but I think we have enough information that I can.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I think that would be a good thing to get some things down on paper
Yeah,
that we can talk about. And then I think that will set us up for success.
And
But
just to clarify, because I'm still jet lagged and processing
Yeah.
slowly. You said hourly rate. These are non-exempt, or right,
Yeah,
exempt positions, correct?
yeah, but what I will do.
So I'm just trying to translate.
That's an interesting question. So I don't mean. I'm actually not gonna speak.
Yeah.
So what did you?
What I meant, so it's my understanding the city of Kirtland, for example, took the average number of hours that the council members in their city work on their official duties, and then assigned an hourly rate that they feel is representative of the work that those individuals do, which came up in today's discussion as it relates to kind of executive level for a part-time role. And then they basically looked at the number of hours multiplied by that rate, and that's how they came out with their salaries for their council. And so I'm just thinking that we would think about somehow looking at, based on the survey results, I think we agreed it's 20 hours or 21 hours.
20.
20 was the
20,
wasn't it? Yeah.
20 was the mode, yeah, so
Yeah,
20 was the most frequent number we heard. So we would take 20 hours and then multiply it by a specific rate and come up with a salary is how I envision it, and then we could have two different levels of.
Which is fine. Yeah, my brain was
Right, I
in
agree.
like executive salary, what's an executive salary for this? And then you take half of it. So I
That's also
think you get to
possible.
the same, I
Yeah.
think you can ultimately get to the
Yeah.
same.
Yeah.
So I just want to make sure I was clear on how.
Yeah.
to think about that.
That was just kind of how I was thinking about it, but I think,
Okay, I would ask if I need some flexibility that I could take it, but I think I come up with options. And I think I could get it to 3. I think I could do that.
I mean,
And I'll just be very clear on what I based it on.
Yeah.
If I base it on something you don't like, you tell me, we could.
Yeah, it's
We
really,
really-
it's really hard to, compare comps because I feel like it's such a novel discussion that we're having right now. Like even Kirkland is not even close to the 66.
Is 66 is half of,
That would
or
be-
66 is the average?
Half, that's half.
The 66?
Yeah, I brought up 66,000 because I was pointing out that the mayor had suggested half of the median income in Bothell. And I was not making a recommendation. I was just simply stating,
Right, no,
I
I
did that
was just,
calculation. and
the 66 is half of the median income. Okay,
Yes.
that's what I wanted to know.
Right,
Great,
correct.
okay, thank you.
I'm also open to thinking either about, I think we could do one as an hourly rate if we want to. And then we could do another as either half of the median income or half of an executive salary.
Yeah.
As like, because I feel like those will be different enough
There'll be a little-
Um, that we could talk about the merits of each, and I think I guess my point is, I'd like to kind of talk about numbers so that
Yeah.
we can get closer to something.
I agree. I think
Even
that's
if we need to tweak it a little bit at the end.
Yeah, we need I think, starting point for the
Yeah.
actual numbers discussion, because we've just discussed a lot of data up to this
Yeah.
point, which is good data, but I think we need to finally, what are we considering?
Right. Do we have purview to make a recommendation that is ongoing with? We believe it should start at this, and then over time it increases to get to a certain level? Just
Yeah, well,
looking at impact on an organization.
that was my next question. But I think, so that's the salary part. The next question I probably will propose to you is, do you want to offer separate benefits, and if so, what?
Right.
The other question I would ask is, do you want to offer what they current offer, which is they also get to participate in our deferred compensation plan? And then what did you just ask about? I'm sorry.
Oh, just if we did a recommendation, so that's a huge jump for a
Oh,
system to absorb
right.
immediately. If we said, let's say we said we wanted to go to the 66 or whatever, as a random example. That feels like a big jump.
Right. Okay.
Is there a path by which we say, we feel this is a great goal, but also pretty fast on a system? And
So you meet annually now? So I don't think that's a city attorney question. I don't think you can say, we'll pay them this for this period of time and this for this period of time,
Got it.
unless it was within the next 12 months.
Okay.
I think you could do that, like you could say in the next 12 months, they'll make this for 6 months and that for 6 months. I think though, after that 12 months, the decision to make a change is this, you don't want to do something that looks like you're trying to subvert the process outlined in the ordinance.
Right.
And so the next 12 months would be decided when you meet next year and you decided to make an adjustment next year. I will tell you though, the second year is a review. It's much, the timeline is 2 months over like 3 meetings. It's that specific because it's meant to be, hey, this is what we did last year. What do we think? And so it's, you don't have unless you ask for it,
Right.
as much time to sort of meet and discuss.
Can we add a stipulation onto the package that there's a regular color increase?
Yes,
And then-
that's what I thought you were
Yeah,
asking.
well, that's, that
Yes,
could play.
yes, and so that will be a question I bring to you is, do you
Okay.
want to attach regular CPI to this or a COLA or other form of COLA?
Okay.
And I can show you what that looks like for the city. Or not. That's been discussed at every salary commission I've ever had
Okay.
is, and they've all said no, because we're just gonna meet and decide if we should change it next time.
Okay.
But you certainly can do that. Certainly makes it. We know it's coming, it's there, it's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's what I was thinking.
yeah. But lots of reasons to do that or not.
Great.
Okay. I think I have 3 clear marching orders. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we done recording?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. We're still recording.
Oh, are they? Yep. Very boring question. Can I leave my tablet here and then they know?
Yes, yes. Yeah.